So you want to be on Dangertainment? Let's see what you got. Welcome back to The Haunted Beard. My name is Jake. Thank you so much for watching. Well, I have been making my way through the entire Halloween series, and with the exception of the very first original film, these have all been first-time watches for me. And I just finished last night Halloween Resurrection, and oh boy, that is where I'm at in the series right now. So let's talk a little bit about it. Halloween Resurrection came out in 2002, 4 years after the previous film. And it opens up with Michael Myers finding Laurie Strode in a mental institution, and they kill off Laurie Strode in about the first, 10, 15 minutes or so. And then the story pretty much completely changes gear, and you are now with a group of college students who sign up to be on a reality TV show that is taking place in the old Michael Myers home. And Michael Myers just happens to show back up at his old home and decides to pick off these kids one by one. And there's your movie. This thing is a train wreck. I have many, many issues with this movie, and I'm just going to go off on it. I really don't have anything positive to say, so there is not really any redeeming qualities to this thing. So let's just get into it. First of all, why does this movie even exist? This is the most classic example of just a complete cash grab by the studio. This is something that has no point in existing. It did not need to be made. It is just purely made to just simply continue the franchise for the studio to make more money off of the name Halloween by having Michael Myers kill more people, and that is it. There is no reason for this thing to exist. What they do by completely retconning the ending of Halloween H2O just to set up another movie is just stupid. It turns out that, as I talked about in my last review of Halloween H2O, it wasn't really Michael Myers that Laurie killed. She happened to kill a police officer or paramedic or whatever who Michael attacked. And so because she killed an innocent person, she's now been put in a mental institution. And Michael Myers goes in there, and they have a fight, and there's this rooftop scene where she's about to kill him, only he ends up stabbing her, and then she kisses him and falls off the building. And that is all they wrote for Laurie Strode. I mean, just what a terrible exit. What a terrible way to just completely disrespect and dismiss this great character. With the amount of fun that I had with Halloween H2O, and as good and as satisfying as that film ends, for them to just do this is just, it's like unforgivable. It just really sucks. And it's just, again, it's something that just, it doesn't need to exist. It's stupid. It's pointless. But they did make another movie that is called Halloween. So in talking about the entire series, I have to review it. The main issue with this is that this is just the most generic, surface level, paint by the numbers, cliched slasher movie. There's just nothing here to elevate it or separate it from any other run-of-the-mill slasher movie we've seen. Just gather a group of college 20-somethings, put them in a location, and have a killer go in there and kill them. That is simply it. The character, they're not even characters, they're like caricatures. Their performances are nothing. The characters are stupid. The dialogue is blah and just nothing. There's just nothing here. These are characters who, like, their conversations are just literally about nothing. They're in this house for, I don't know how long, 20, 30 minutes before, Myers kills one of them, and they're just talking about just, like, literally nothing. There's nothing interesting to say. They're just walking around the house. There's nothing interesting to do. There's just nothing interesting happening at all in this entire thing. Now, one of the things that happens right after Michael kills Lori is he goes back into the asylum and he hands his knife over to one of the inmates. And this one of the inmates, he like knows all this information about serial killers. That's kind of his character introduction. And Michael hands him his knife. Michael leaves and walks down the hallway. And now, to me, it seems like we're led to believe that this is kind of the passing of the torch, that there is now sort of a new Michael Myers, I guess. But this character isn't ever talked about or mentioned again, and there's no real clear um, explanation given as to whether or not the Michael Myers that is in the rest of the movie is the actual real original Michael Myers or is this new guy. It was just such an odd and weird scene that didn't really it was just confusing and I'm not exactly sure how to take it. Ultimately it doesn't really matter because I don't care enough about this movie to really think about it beyond this, but that was just a really weird scene to me. We are introduced to Tyra Banks' character, and she is one of the producers on this show. And of course, there has to be a scene of her dancing around, shaking her butt on the screen. Like, but of course, we have to have that, right? Oh, it's Tyra Banks, so let's just put a camera on her and have her shake her butt around. It's just like, oh, brother. Before all the contestants go into the house, the producers are, setting up cameras throughout the house, and there's a scene with this, I guess he's this cameraman named Charlie, and he's setting up a camera and he's talking back and forth to Tyra Banks, and they had this opportunity to pull off this scene that would have been pretty cool because she's watching him on all the different video screens and he's there, moving cameras around or whatever, and Michael Myers comes and ends up killing him. But what we have is, again, we're watching Tyra Banks dance around making an espresso, and it's like this cutesy hip hop R&B music playing, and she's just totally oblivious to everything that's happening as he's getting murdered in the background. And I feel like you had kind of an interesting setup, but they just ruin it with what we're watching Tyra Banks make an espresso, dancing around, listening to this god awful music, and it just kills it. And that's just another example of why this movie is terrible. And then we get, ladies and gentlemen, we get Busta Rhymes. Yeah.
So you want to be on Dangertainment? Let's see what you got.
Another terrible decision is that they hook up all the people that go into the Myers house with their own personal camera devices. Now, it's a cool idea in theory because then you can, watch. This whole thing is being broadcasted online so people can, log in and watch the live stream. Well, this is the early 2000s, and the little headset cameras that they got going on are horrendous quality. And the film often cuts to those shots, and it looks like we're watching a VHS tape that has been dragged through a gravel pit for an hour, and that's the quality that we're getting. It just is terrible looking. And so we get to enjoy that mess for, probably 15 minutes of the movie as they continually cut back and forth between the actual film and the video footage from these little head-mounted cameras, and it just looks terrible. There's another stupid moment where one of the characters played by Thomas Ian Nicholas, who, by the way, is just gross in this movie. I mean, he's just an absolute perv. Anyway, he's the first one to die, thank God. And the producers, Tyra Banks and Busta Rhymes, who are, again, sitting in their sort of area with all the camera feeds, just happen to be conveniently looking away during this time, and his feed cuts out, and Busta Rhymes is just like, something happened to his camera. I guess you should just go to a different shot. It's like, what? Like, come on. Give me something better than that. It's just terrible. And there's other instances like that, too, where characters are getting killed, and you're just like, Is anybody seeing this? What is Tyra Banks and Busta doing? What is going on? How are they not seeing that there's somebody else in the house? Again, there's cameras set up all throughout the house that are like, mounted in the corners, and like somehow Michael Myers just evades detection on all those. Like they can't ever see him. They never ask about Charlie either, the guy who gets killed during the setup. And then we get this wonderful scene between Busta Rhymes and Michael Myers where they finally get confronted. So Busta Rhymes dons a Michael Myers mask and he actually goes into the house because he wants to play a prank and scare the people in there. Well, he ends up running into the actual Michael Myers and he thinks it's Charlie. And he's like, Charlie, where you been, man? And Michael Myers just sits there and stares at him. And then he just turns around and walks away. And it's like, uh, oh, okay, sure. Another crazy thing this movie does is they introduce this character played by Ryan Merriman, and he somehow has this connection with the main girl, who's I guess the protagonist, played by Bianca Kalick, and they kind of know each other, but only like online. And he, I guess, kind of likes her, so he's watching the live stream, and he's at this Halloween party because we need some sort of Halloween theme in the movie because it's Halloween. And it's so hilarious because they got this group of people in this room from the party watching the show, and every time a character dies, everybody in the room is just like, "Oh yeah, this is amazing. Oh man, what good acting. She's so talented."
Somebody out there, please help us. Somebody please help us. She really is a very talented actress.
It's just so ridiculous. And then Ryan Merriman's the only one sitting there who's like, "Guys, guys, no, this is real. He's really killing people." It's just the most ridiculous and hilarious thing. And what ends up happening is he ends up like texting the main girl to send her warnings where Michael Myers is throughout the house. Only I guess it's really not texting because they're not using phones because they can't call each other. And it's like I think they're using like Palm Pilots or something like that. Do you guys remember Palm Pilots? Anyways, they're palm piloting each other, and that's how Ryan Merriman is notifying the main girl where Michael Myers is throughout the house. That's the only reason his character exists. They just needed him so that they could have some way to communicate to the girl inside the house where Michael Myers is. And that's it. Some other stupid stuff this movie does is there's a handful of just dumb, terrible jump scares, of course. It also does this thing where it will just like randomly insert like a slow motion shot. It'll like cut to like a second long like slow motion shot where you can tell everything's slowed down and then it'll just go back. And it does this at just like random times throughout the movie. It's just a really odd choice. Now we arrive at my favorite part in this movie. Michael Myers gets kung fu kicked out a window by Busta Rhymes. There's a sentence I never thought I'd ever say. He literally goes, "Hi-ya!" and kicks him out a window. And it's just like, this is actually happening in a real movie. It's amazing. During that scene when Busta Rhymes is fighting Michael Myers, the main girl, Bianca Kalick, ends up taking off a mounted camera and tries to strangle Michael Myers. She jumps on his back and wraps it around his neck. And why do people spin when people jump on their back? So he starts like spinning around. It's like, how difficult would it be to just take your knife and go, boom, you're dead. That's it. That's all you have to do. But he doesn't do that. He spins to try to get her off his back, and then he gets kung fu kicked out the window. So we reach the final showdown. between Bianca Kalick and Michael Myers, and they're in this room. I can't even remember if they're in the house or in the garage now. I think they might be in the garage, and the garage is on fire, and she gets knocked down and is trapped under something. I can't even remember. I just watched the movie last night, and I can't even remember that. I think she's like trapped under something in the garage. Everything's on fire. Michael Myers goes over to, stab her and kill her, and who we thought was dead, who comes through the door? Busta Rhymes comes in to save the day. And what does he do? He takes an electrical wire and electrocutes Michael Myers in the crotch. Then he picks up Bianca Kalick, and instead of bolting out the exit, he has to drop one more tough guy line before walking to safety. And that's your movie. This thing is abysmal. It's terrible. It's just bad. It's an absolute travesty of a movie, and I hope I never have to watch it again. So, those are my thoughts on Halloween Resurrection. And I guess overall, if I have to give this thing a grade, I mean, I don't know, like a 1.5. It's Busta Rhymes. A couple of his lines actually made me laugh. But other than that, I mean, this thing is. There is absolutely no reason to watch this movie. It's terrible. So, thankfully, that is over, and I have officially reached the point where we are now in the reboot stage of Halloween. Rob Zombie's Halloween from 2007 is coming up next. That will be the next review, and I look forward to it, and I will see you next time on The Haunted Beard.